You have to understand the sound. It wasn't a squish. It wasn't a dull thud. It was a crack, sharp and dry, like a glacier splitting under its own impossible weight. I was standing right behind the blast shield when it happened, and I swear I saw the shockwave ripple through Grogath's massive forearm before his brain even processed the pain. 1 second, he was swinging a weighted training blade capable of shearing through a tank hull. The next, his wrist was bent at a 90-degree angle, an angle his anatomy was never meant to support. He stared up at the ceiling lights, eyes rolled back, completely disconnected from what had just happened. Truth is, he thought he was fighting a student. He wasn't. He was fighting a weapon system wrapped in soft skin. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It didn't start with broken bones. Started 10 minutes earlier, and honestly, it was boring. We were on the main training floor of the Apex Citadel. Polished chrome everywhere. Air so clean it tasted like ozone. Gravity settings cranked high enough to crush the unprepared. This was where the galaxy's elite sent their offspring to become warlords. At the center stood Grogath, a Krogan champion. 7 feet of carapace and ego. For arms like carved granite. He was deadlifting a grav plate set to maximum density, and every time he dropped it, the deck plates trembled. Everyone was watching him. Everyone except Mara Vance. She was off in the corner, barely noticeable. A human. You don't see many of them in the Citadel. She looked small, fragile even. She was doing controlled elbow impact drills with weights most species wouldn't use for warm-ups. Grogath roared with every rep, demanding attention. Mara just breathed. Smooth, controlled. The galaxy mistakes silence for submission. On Earth, silence is survival. I think that silence is what irritated him. Grogath slammed his weights down. The clang rang like a gunshot. He wiped sweat from his brow and turned, for eyes narrowing as they locked onto her. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop. He didn't walk over. He marched. He wanted a spectacle. A reminder to every lesser species where they stood in the food chain. Mara was racking her light dumbbells when his shadow swallowed her whole. Move, soft skin, Grogath boomed. His voice vibrated in my ribs. This rack is for warriors. The nursery is on the lower level. Mara paused. No flinch. No tension. She set the weights down with a soft click. She didn't look at his face. She looked at his center of mass. I am finished, Grogath, she said calmly. The equipment is yours. She stepped to move around him. Mistake. Or maybe bait. His lower arm shot out and slammed into the rack supports, blocking her path. Metal shrieked against metal. Every eye in the gym turned toward them. You do not walk away when I am speaking, he sneered, tusks inches from her face. You humans call yourselves apex predators of endurance. You look like glass to me. Physics doesn't care about your family's political influence, Mara replied evenly. That did it. Grogath slammed his fist into the wall control panel. Amber perimeter lights flared to life. Force fields hummed into place, sealing them inside a 20-foot circle. Sparring protocol engaged, the system announced cheerfully. I'm going to break you, Grogath growled. And I'm going to make the whole academy watch. I gripped the railing. I thought I was about to witness a massacre. Krogans don't just punch. They swarm. Grogath launched forward like a collapsing mountain, for arms swinging in a blur of muscle and violence. I braced myself for the sound of cracking ribs. But Mara didn't step back. She stepped in. It was like watching a ghost. Every strike that should have crushed her skull missed by centimeters. A tilt of her head. A subtle shift of her hips. She flowed through the gaps in his reach like water through a sieve, redirecting his own momentum against him. Grogath roared louder, his strikes growing wider, more desperate. He was fighting a kinetic equation he didn't understand. Mara dipped under a massive uppercut. Her hand flashed out, 2 fingers driving precisely into the nerve cluster behind his secondary elbow. Snap. His lower left arm went limp instantly, hanging uselessly at his side. The sound Grogath made wasn't rage. It was wounded pride. He abandoned the rules, abandoned protocol, reached for the rack and ripped down a weighted training blade. Safety alarms screamed as the blade sliced through the air in a decapitating arc. We all shouted. Mara didn't blink. She moved first. As the blade swung, she stepped inside the arc, right into his chest where he couldn't generate force. One hand captured his wrist. The other braced his elbow. She twisted. The joint popped audibly across the arena. The blade clattered across the chrome floor, sparks skittering in its wake. Before Grogath could react, Mara's knee drove into his solar plexus with hydraulic precision. Air fled his lungs. He doubled over. She pivoted on her heel, bringing her forearm down in a brutal strike behind his auditory ridge, the only vulnerable point on a Krogan skull. Thump! The giant collapsed. The force fields flickered and deactivated. Silence swallowed the room. Medical drones descended from the rafters. Commander Vale was already at the edge of the circle, his expression unreadable as he looked from the unconscious champion to the small human woman who hadn't even broken a sweat. Explanation. Cadet, he barked. Mara said nothing. She reached into her pocket, removed a silver identification chip, and tossed it onto his data pad. I saw his eyes widen. He didn't ask another question. He stepped aside. Mara walked past me without acknowledgement, picked up her towel, wiped her hands, left the arena. As she disappeared down the corridor, I looked back at Grogath being loaded onto a hovering stretcher. He'd spent his entire life believing mass was everything. He never understood that on Earth we don't fight to dominate. We fight to finish. Maybe one day the galaxy will learn. But after what I witnessed, I will never call a human soft again. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.